In Lesson 10, we're going to be tweaking our layout even more. We're going to be talking about absolute positioning, centering more items, adding some layout enhancements, and some more properties and values. So this is the web page that we had from last lesson. And here is the HTML and the CSS. So let's go back to our web page and think about some things that we might want to enhance. I'm thinking that we're going to have to probably give this a background color to give it a container. I'll show you what I mean here. Background, we'll give it white so it can be really nice and easy to read. Oh, not the header, I'm sorry, the container. Background. That way it'll set it apart from the rest of it. And you'll see that some of our text will have to change. But this is what I was talking about last time, where we can apply these styles now to this container now that we've created it, and we still have this texture for the background, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to apply this, copy this, and apply this to the container element in our CSS. Go back to the CSS, paste that in there, save, and refresh, and we should be fine with that. And then we notice we have some funky things going on with the margin on the top. Maybe we might want that, but in this case I know that I didn't mean to do that, so I'm going to show you how to get rid of it. That's coming probably from the automatic margins that the browser is giving our H1 tag. See that extra orangish color, peach salmon, whatever color that is, margins that it's giving it. So I'm going to take that away. We don't need that much for our purposes. So I'm going to reset it, margin equals 0. And maybe we'll do something like 6, 0. No, I'll just reset margin to 0. So H1 margin 0, copy and paste that over to our H1. Save, go back and refresh. And we have that, and we see that the container isn't extending all the way to the bottom. It's only extending as far as the last content goes. And this probably won't be a problem when we get more content in, but let me just fix it for right now. I'm going to bring open Inspector again. And I know one issue that we have is that we have to make the body and the HTML tag, the height of it 100%. So let's put the height at 100%. And just to test this theory, this won't solve it on its own. The height of that is 100% now, and we have to make the height of the container, of course, 100%. And that's how to handle that issue. Pretty simple. You just have to make sure that each child or parent of the child that you want to be 100% also has 100%. So let's go put 100% into the container. Let's put height right underneath width. 100% there, and our resets that we're putting at the top here with these kind of our initial values up here we'll put at 100%. And when we go back and refresh, it should be the same. And then of course our H1 title of our page has white text on white. So what I'm going to do, I think what I want to do to set our header apart is actually give that a background color. We haven't set up a style rule for header yet, but I'll put it in here to start testing it out. So we'll put background colon dark gray. We'll try for now. And then I see that it doesn't contain everything I want it to. I want it to contain the nav. It's only containing the nav element breaks outside of the height of it. The only thing that defines the height right now is the H1. So I'm going to actually put a specific height in for the header. And let's just start with 120 pixels, and that looks like it incorporates everything. And it looks like a good height for a header. And as far as user experience, you don't want to make your headers too tall because your content, you want to keep as much content in the viewport as possible. So I'm going to create a new rule here. I'm going to copy both of these actually and make a new rule back in our CSS document for header and paste that in. save that, go back to our page, and refresh. What did my background color not work? Oh, my B didn't copy over. So that's a good example of how to make sure all your code works. The B didn't copy over, so I just have to be careful. And I think that this is a little light, and we'll take care of that too for usability. Maybe that might be something you want, but we're not sure. So let's style this up a little bit more. Again, let's open that up in Inspector, and let's also give it a width. Let's give our nav a width, actually. That's the containing element of that. And we know there's 3 items at 100 pixels each, so we're going to have to make it larger than 300 pixels wide. So let's start with 300, and I'm going to hit Shift up here, and until that contact, there it goes. See how that contact moved up? Before it was pushing it below because this container wasn't wide enough. By bumping that up to 340, now contact is in the same line. And we might need to adjust this when we add more navigation items, but for now we're just going to keep it at 300 just to show the way of centering this as well. And we'll center it by margin 0 auto. Bring back the inspector here and do the on our UL element. Let's also do text transform uppercase, and that'll give us uppercase letters for that. That's looking a little nicer. I also think I want to give it a font family, and we're going to use basic fonts now, nothing fancy yet. Arial, sans serif. Aha, and now we can see that our 100 width is no longer wide enough. So let's go ahead and put these values in for our properties over in our CSS document, the UL here. And now it's important to note that this is going to affect all unordered lists, ULs, across the website. So this is something we might want to get more specific with if we don't want uppercase lists in other parts of the document. But for now, we'll put this on here so you understand. And we also have to add these to our nav element. We have not specified a nav yet, so let's put that right under here. I try to kind of keep seeing things in order as for how generic they are. I keep them at top, my resets, my generic items that are not very specific, and kind of going from top to bottom of the page to what I'm going to put in here is my margin equals 0 and 340. Now we know that these are going to be incorrect because when I refresh the page, those are smaller. So what I'm going to do, or they're cutting off our words. So our 100 width for these is not enough. Let's just see how much we need. So I went up to 110, and I think they're a little too close spaced together, so I'm going to put 120 and see how that looks, and then go up to our UL element, our nav element, which we set at 340, and bump that up as well. And I'm holding Shift and up to increase the pixels, and you can see how much we need to get that all in there. So 420 for the nav and 120 for the LI. So let's go and change that. LI, we changed it to 120, and the nav, we have 420. And that'll give us a lot more room up there for now. There we go. And you can see how we can make these changes really quickly with the Chrome Inspector. Instead of just guessing and going back and forth, we can make them and see how they look right on the fly. Okay, so now the next thing I want to do, we have the top looking pretty nice. I feel like these could be darker, but there's some kind of nice thing about it being lighter. It's weird that this one is orange, but when we later on make a page for that, which will make pages for these 2 other elements soon, I'll make that blue. But it's nice to show why it's different for now. We talked about that in a previous lesson. Let's go on and organize this more. I think what I want to do is make this into a banner area where we kind of had a hero image. and we have to think about what we want to do with that. But for now, let's make some more containers around that. And we'll go back into our HTML document here, and we can see this is how we last left it. But what I want to do is create another container, and you'll see why I have to do this later on. There is a div there, and I want to be careful that I make sure I add it in the correct spot here. And that's where that correct spot is. And so I'm going to indent there, and then we have to indent these so to keep that organized. And what I'll do is put an ID for this, and I'm going to call this banner. I guess I'll just call it banner for now. So this is our banner container here, containing all of this stuff. In fact, what I'm going to do is move this paragraph down out of here into our normal flow for content, like the rest of our page outside of the hero. And so this will just be our banner for the hero. And we still have our content wrapper for all of the bottom content for the pages. And so that's one container we'll need. And then we have our image, and we have a caption. And then what I'm going to do is I want this caption to be over the image. So let's put that inside of there, because since it belongs to that, we'll put that paragraph in there. And now we're going to get some things that are messed up, so we're going to have to change our CSS. But let's go back and refresh and see what we get. Okay, so that goes above there, and that's down there, and we'll have to change the color of that. That's hard to read. So let's go to inspect element here and see our cat image at its best. So what we have is its positioning. We still have that set from the beginning at 50 and 70 off from the top left side. So let's take that away. We want to get that snug up into the corner. So we see that that works. So we're going to go back to our CSS document, find our cat image, and take away the background positioning. Save it and refresh. And now we see we still have some space to fill up here and here. Go back to our inspector and see what's happening with that. We have a background that's filling that container. Now I'm going to show you the background size property. We have a background image, background hyphen size, and the values that you can use for this are contain, cover, and inherit, initial, and then you can also give it specific pixels, and you can give it specific percentages. Let's try to see what 100% does. That fills 100% of its container. So here's the banner container. That's inheriting 100% width from all of these containers it's inside, from its parents. And so the cat image, when it is already a background image, as we talked about that in a previous lesson, I gave it a background size of 100, and that let it fill the container. So let's copy that, go back to our CSS, and make a background size property. And unfortunately, because, or perhaps it's not unfortunate, but you can't put this property embedded into here like we were talking about for shorthand, because it would compete with the background position. So it has to be its own separate property in selector, property inside the selectors. So take note of that. We're going to save it and go back and refresh and make sure everything's fine, and it is. And now we notice there's this white stripe up in here, and maybe that's fine for you, maybe it isn't. Let's just put this picture up there. And I know what it's from, just like our issue before with the H1, this is an issue with the P tag, the paragraph tag, and you see that it has a lot of built-in margins. Let's just reset that for now to 0. We're going to have to change that to something higher than that later, but because every paragraph has a space around it, there's some space between each paragraph when you're talking about body tags. But for now, I'm going to set this at margin 0, and we'll come back and change that later. So find our P tag here, and we'll put that as margin 0. And now that will move that right up in there. And now I talked about having this overlay. It is overlaying, and it's red and underlined, and I don't think I quite like that. But I wanted to show you some absolute positioning here. So let's make this is the caption, and let's make the position of it absolute. So position is another property you can use, and it defaults to static, which really doesn't do much. if we do absolute, you'll see what it can do. We can do with it. Now that I've called this as absolute, I can give it a top property, and let's just give it 10 pixels for now, and you'll see it moves it 10 from the top, and left 10 pixels, and you'll see that it moves it 10 from the left of the page. Now you can see how this is a problem because it's no longer above our image. And the reason for this is I gave it position absolute, and position absolute breaks it out of the flow of the document. It just lets me position it wherever I want. And you probably could think to yourself, well, I could take this and get it to be over the image. But I can tell you that that's not the best way to handle this, because we want it to stay relative to this image. We're going to overlay it over this image, and doing that, it just really is not the best practice for when things start shifting around, if you start creating some fluid websites and things like that. So the way to handle that is to make its container, its parent element, position relative. And now you see that our caption has gone relative with these pixel dimensions as far as it could over here. So when you need something to stay relative, when you need an absolutely positioned element to stay relative to its container, to its parent, then you make its parent relative. So we know we need that. Let's go and put some of those images. So we have our cat image, which is the container for this, and the caption for the paragraph is the item we need to absolutely position. So let's go change that. Cat image needs to be position relative, and the caption can be position absolute. And we also had some top properties and some left properties which we can use. I'm going to put those in right away just at 0, but at least we'll have them to grab onto now when we're in an inspector. So now it's positioning it here at 0, 0, and if you see we take that off, it does nothing. You can also use bottom 0, and you see it's at the bottom, and right. And it kind of does the same thing. You just have to, if you're on the right here, you increase your pixels as to how much you want it to move right. But we're going to stick with the standard left and top, or I guess it was top and left. And I'm going to move these around now to see where I want this. And perhaps I do want bottom here, because I want this at the bottom. And I think I want to make this uppercase. Before we made it lowercase, let's make it uppercase. And let's make it, red is no longer suitable for our design needs. Let's make it white. And let us also, oh, by the way, I was tabbing. I can shift tab to go up through, backwards through these elements, or tab to go through them in the inspector CSS. I'm also want to take away the underline. So we'll put none up here. And then I want to make it a font family, something different than the default. And that font family will be Arial. Keep it basic, and sans serif. And let's introduce a new property here for you, font weight. And you can see that there's a bold. So there we have a bold font weight. That's a new property we didn't talk about. So that's looking interesting. I can realize too that we don't need a left property. We can probably center this if we specify a width. So we'll make the width 100%, so that'll be 100% of its container. And then we will text align center. We'll see it's right in the center there. And then, of course, if you don't want it centered, if you want it into a specific spot, you could use that left to do that. So I got all this code written for caption. I'm going to copy this and go to my caption, and I'm going to copy or select over all that so I can paste over the top of it. And you can see, this is good that it did this. I wanted to show you a comment. Because I had that left unchecked, what it did when I pasted it back in is it commented it out, meaning that it's not going to be effective. So you see that it actually won't apply the left 70 pixels, but these commenting, what it is a slash asterisk, and then at the end asterisk slash. But I know I don't need that, so I'm going to take that right out. Save that, and what it'll do is apply everything we just did. And you can see our web page coming together now. We did some absolute positioning. We fixed the full width problem. We styled our navigation better. We created the image to be full sizes of its containers, and I showed you to add some additional containers so that we could do relative and absolute positioning. So again, we handled a lot in one lesson, and if you have any questions, just post them in the comments. Next time we'll tackle this content area down here and move on to some more CSS. Thank you.